If your business is calculating emissions or tendering out contracts or even writing a carbon reduction plan, you've probably heard about what carbon offsetting is. So in this video, I'm just going to quickly go over the definitions of what carbon offsetting is, how we do it, and why it's important for businesses. Firstly, my name is Frazer. I help businesses calculate and reduce their carbon emissions, as well as offset them to international standards. I work with and founded the Carbon Stamp, which is a carbon reporting company. So firstly, I think before jumping into what is carbon offsetting, you first need to understand what a carbon footprint is. And that is the total greenhouse gas emissions from your operations supply chain. So that covers scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. I've got another video which details that in a bit more detail which is called What is your carbon footprint? How to calculate step by step. And that's a really important step to do before even considering what carbon offsetting is. So carbon offsetting is therefore the neutralisation of these emissions by funding verified projects that reduce or remove CO2 elsewhere. So what I mean by that is that a business can have a carbon footprint of 100 tonnes. And once you know that total, companies can then decide to offset that amount by purchasing verified projects. So why measure first? You can't offset what you haven't measured. You need to identify these hotspots and implement realistic reductions before you even consider the offsetting part. I see companies at the moment which are offsetting, which is amazing, which is great to do, but they're just offsetting a random amount. So it doesn't actually mean anything. For example, they could only be offsetting 2% of their total footprint, where the real reductions, the real focus should be on the carbon reduction. So that's just something to think about if you are considering carbon offsetting. Definitely calculate your carbon footprint first. So, but this video is all about what carbon offsetting is. So I'm assuming you've already done that. So how does it actually work? We've already discussed what it is, and that is the neutralisation of emissions by funding those verified projects. But how does it actually work? So like I mentioned, you need to quantify your emissions. You need to complete that carbon footprint assessment and establish a verified emissions total to offset. Moving on, you set a carbon reduction plan. So if you want to actually be certified as carbon neutral, you need to have a carbon reduction plan in place demonstrating emissions reduction over years. So for example, that could be over the actual baselines or actually an intensity metric where you're at least demonstrating emissions per £1 million in revenue as something. Then from there, you actually purchase offsets through reliable sources such as the Carbon Stamp, like ourselves. We procure these for you on your behalf, finding the best rates and also the most up-to-date standards. The most recognised standards that we work with is the UNCER, Verra VCS, as well as the gold standards. And from that, you also receive digital certification confirming your offsets and neutrality. And then step 4 is that you review and complete this annually. It's very similar to a financial report, is that you complete a carbon report every year. So what you emitted in 2024, say it's 2025, you're calculating 2024's data. What you offset from 2025, when you move to 2026, is no longer valid. Okay, so you need to review and complete that annually. So who verifies these offsets? Where are you guys getting these from? So as mentioned, we get these from the UN, Verra, and Gold Standard. These are the 3 key ones that businesses should be using and utilising, and these are the ones that we procure on your behalf. So the common project types there's 3 main types. So we've got nature-based, so we've got reforestation, peatland, and peatland restoration. We typically focus on energy, which is wind, solar, and methane capture. And there's also community, which the Gold Standard focuses on, which is clean cook stoves and water access. But for our clients, we typically go for wind and solar. And as mentioned, the benefits here for businesses are typically claiming carbon neutrality, but it also supports your tenders and ESG expectations, and it meets the supply chain pressures that you'll be receiving from the larger customers. So a real world example here for you, a case study we got is Medicom Healthcare. They're one of our key accounts where they came to us and we created a carbon impact report for them, as well as a verified carbon reduction plan, which they use for tendering to the NHS framework. But on their second year, when we'd already demonstrated reductions in their carbon intensity by 13%, we also offset 490 tonnes of their total carbon footprint, which in turn certified them as carbon neutral. And here you can see the certificate of carbon offset, and here you can see the certificate of carbon neutrality. So this is kind of stuff that you'd expect to receive if you worked with the Carbon Stamp. So whilst we've said what carbon offsetting is and how it's important and how it's good for businesses, there are some key mistakes that you should be trying to avoid, some common mistakes you should be trying to avoid. So like I mentioned at the start, offsetting before reducing is a no. You should definitely not be doing this. Secondly is buying unverified and cheap credits. If you find anything for less than £1, these will not be legit. So definitely work with companies like ourselves to find these for you. Vague claims with no project IDs or documentation on the website. Well, it's a bit vague where this has come from. You definitely need evidence to back up what you've been offsetting. And finally, treating offsetting as a substitute for reduction is a no-go. You should be aiming and prioritizing the calculation and reduction process, and then using offsetting as a secondary step and tool. So to quickly summarize this video, you measure, you reduce, and you offset, you certify, and you repeat annually. And that is kind of what carbon offsetting is and should be for businesses. If you at all have any questions about carbon reporting, reduction, or offsetting, then please don't hesitate to complete a form on our website and reach out to us, or reach out to me personally on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to help. Thank you.